Hello people, I'm back with another video on the topic spinal cord. Watch it till the end to clear all your basic concepts. If there is any doubt or query, you can comment down below or directly text me. My email ID is in the description. Now let's move on to the video. Introduction to spinal cord. Spinal cord is the caudal elongated part of the CNS. So, cranially we have the brain and caudally we have the spinal cord, which is continuous downwards from the medulla oblongata to lower border of the first lumbar vertebra. So, this is the midbrain, this is the pons, this is the medulla oblongata, and from the medulla oblongata, the spinal cord continues downwards and till the lower border of L1. So, this is the L1 vertebra. So, till here, the spinal cord continues. It is cylindrical in shape and occupies upper 2/3 of the vertebral canal. Its lower end near the L1 vertebra tapers and is called conus medullaris. So if you see here, this tapering end, this is known as conus medullaris. Then 31 pairs of spinal nerves are attached to the spinal cord, and it also constitutes many ascending and descending tracts which helps in conveying information between the body parts and the brain. Now coming to the external features of the spinal cord. So we have 4 such features: fissures and sulci, attachment of spinal nerves, enlargements and the cauda equina. First coming to fissures and sulci. So what are they? Fissures and sulci both are grooves, means khadda, but the only difference is that sulci are shallow while the fissures are deep. Okay, on the spinal cord, anteriorly if we see, there is anterior median fissure and the 2 anterolateral sulci. So we will see this in this diagram. This is the cut section of the spinal cord. So anteriorly means this is the anterior part. Here we see anterior median fissure, and fissure is deep. So this anterior median fissure is deep, as you see, and 2 anterolateral sulci. So 1, 2. These are the anterolateral sulci, which are not so deep. They are shallow, right? So this one is the anterior median fissure. Fissure is deep. And these 2 are the anterolateral sulci. Similarly, when you see posteriorly, you get 1 posterior median sulcus. This is not so deep, so this is known as sulcus. आगे fissure था, पीछे sulci है. Okay, so posterior median sulcus, then 2 posterolateral sulcus. So these are posterolateral sulcus and 2 posterior intermediate sulcus, means उन दोनों के बीच में. So these are posterior intermediate sulci. Next. Second is attachment of spinal nerves. There are 31 pair of spinal nerves. Among them, 8 are cervical, 12 are thoracic, 5 are lumbar, 5 are sacral, and 1 is coccygeal. So, spinal segments. What are they? It is the part of spinal cord where a pair of spinal nerve is attached. So, considering one segment where a pair of spinal nerve is attached, that is a spinal segment. The number of spinal segments are equal to the number of vertebrae, except at 2 places. In the cervical region, we have C1 to C7 vertebrae, but we have 8 spinal segments from C1 to C8. Likewise, in coccygeal region, we have 4 coccygeal vertebrae, but the spinal segment is only 1. Then, the length of the spinal cord is smaller than that of the vertebral canal, due to which the spinal segments are crowded, especially in the lower part of the cord. So, here you can see the spinal segments are crowded because the spinal segments have to accommodate in the smaller spinal cord, whereas the vertebral canal is longer than the spinal cord. right? Then, the spinal segments always lie above their numerically corresponding vertebra. For example, lumbar segments lie at the level of thoracic vertebra. Let's see. So, these are the lumbar segments, the blue ones. And what is their level? They do not lie corresponding the lumbar vertebra, they lie close to the thoracic vertebra because the spinal cord is shorter than the vertebral canal. I hope you understood this. Now third, coming to enlargements of the spinal cord. So these are the swellings in the spinal cord known as cervical and lumbar enlargements placed at the level of brachial and the lumbosacral plexus respectively. So if you have studied the upper limb and the lower limb, you must have known what is the brachial and the lumbosacral plexus. So at their level, the cervical and lumbar enlargements are present. So this is the cervical enlargement and this is the lumbar enlargement, the swellings. Then these enlargements are due to the presence of large number of motor neurons supplying the musculature of the upper and the lower limb with their associated girdles. So the cervical enlargement is supplying the muscles of upper limb and the lumbar enlargement is supplying the muscles of lower limb with their girdles. That is the pelvic girdle and all. Then extent of cervical enlargement. So it is from C5 to T1 spinal segments, not the vertebral canal level, the spinal segment level. And the lumbar enlargement from the L2 to S3 level. Fourth external feature is the cauda equina. Now what is it? It comprises the spinal nerve roots of the lower 4 pair of lumbar, 5 pairs of sacral and 1 pair of coccygeal nerves. So they form a cauda equina. Now how it is formed? Let us understand that. As we know, the spinal cord is shorter than the vertebral canal and each spinal nerve comes out through its corresponding number of intervertebral foramen. So suppose if we see this is L1 spinal segment and this is the intervertebral foramen from where the L1 spinal nerve has to come out. So obviously this has to travel down and it will come from here. Now let us read this. In order to maintain this thing, the spinal nerve travels down in search of its foramen like we saw, and together they form a bunch of nerve fibers around the filum terminale known as the cauda equina, resembling a horsetail. So if you see in this part, this forms a tuft of spinal nerves which is known as cauda equina. And what all nerve root it comprises? As we saw, 4 pair of lumbar, last 4 pair. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 5 pair of sacral. So these yellow ones are the sacral and coccygeal. This one is the coccygeal. So all the nerve roots arising from these form the cauda equina. With that we have completed the external features of the spinal cord. Now we will study the internal features, and in this video we will cover the grey matter. In the next video we will continue with the white matter of the spinal cord. So starting with the grey matter is seen at the core while the white matter is seen in the periphery in the cut section of spinal cord. So as you can see in this diagram, at the core this is the grey matter and at the periphery is the white matter. This is the cut section of the spinal cord, anterior side, posterior sides and the lateral sides. This grey matter comprises the neuronal cell bodies, neuroglial elements as well as few blood vessels. It is an H-shaped column seen in whole length of the spinal cord. The right and the left halves are connected in midline by the transverse grey commissure. So this whole is the transverse grey commissure, the grey part, in the center of which passes the central canal of the spinal cord. So this is the central canal of the spinal cord. The right and left comma-shaped masses, these are kind of comma-shaped. So right and left comma-shaped masses are further divided by the transverse grey commissure into the anterior and the posterior horn. So this was the transverse grey commissure it divides the spinal cord anteriorly into the anterior horn and posteriorly into the posterior horn. So let us label. This is the anterior horn. This part is the transverse gray commissure, and these are the posterior horns, right? Next, nerve cell groups in the gray matter. So in the anterior gray column, here we have the medial, lateral and the central nerve cell groups. So this is the medial, this is the lateral and this is the central. In the posterior gray column, means this whole, we have substantia gelatinosa. So this orange part is the substantia gelatinosa. Then the purple one is the nucleus proprius. The inner red one is the nucleus dorsalis or the Clark's column, and this green one is the visceral afferent nucleus. Then in the intermediate gray column, so this is the intermediate gray column where we have the intermediolateral and the intermedial-medial nucleus. One is missing, so we can draw here. So this can be intermedial-medial and the blue one is the intermediolateral nucleus. Firstly, in the anterior gray column, medial group. So this was the medial group. It innervates the axial musculature of the neck and trunk. Guys, understand one thing. As we have studied previously, that the anterior column is concerned with the motor functions and the posterior one is concerned with the sensory functions. So the afferents will come here and the efferents will go from here. Okay, so in the anterior column we will learn about the efferents, and in the posterior column we will learn about the afferents. Okay, we have done the medial group. It innervates the axial musculature of the neck and trunk. Then the lateral group. It supplies the muscles of limb. So medially the neck and trunk and laterally the muscles of limb. Then the central group. It has three subgroups known as the phrenic nucleus, the lumbosacral nucleus and the spinal nucleus of accessory nerve, which is part of 11th cranial nerve, right? The phrenic nucleus, it innervates the diaphragm. Okay, then in the posterior gray column we have the orange one, substantia gelatinosa. It receives fibers because it is afferent part, so it receives fibers concerned with the pain and temperature sensations of the body. Then the purple one was the nucleus proprius. It receives fibers associated with the proprioception. Now what is proprioception? It is the sense of position and movement. I can explain this via a diagram. Suppose you are this human being. If I close your eyes and move your hands from this place to here, so now what is your position? It is like this, right? Here is your hand. So when you close your eyes, you do not see where I am moving your hand, but still you know the final position of your hand. That sense is known as sense of proprioception, and you also know in which direction I have moved your hand when your eyes are closed. So how can you sense that? That is due to proprioception. So that is done by the nucleus proprius. Okay. Then 2-point discrimination. This can be understood by, suppose this is your hand, and if I pinch from a pin at this point and then I pinch again at this point, you will be able to discriminate the 2 points where I pinched even when your eyes are closed. But if I pinch here and the next pinch is very close to it, maybe you won't be able to exactly pinpoint where I pinched you. So that is 2-point discrimination, like till how far you can discriminate between the 2 points when you feel something. Okay. So we have done the sense of position and movement, that is proprioception. We have done the 2-point discrimination, and then vibration. You all know what is vibration. So for all these senses, we have this nucleus proprius, which receives the fibers from those muscles or the positions of the body. Okay, third is nucleus dorsalis. Receives fibers associated with proprioception from the muscles and joints, and touch and pressure sensation from the trunk and the lower limb. So this is the trunk and this is the lower limb. So the touch and the pressure sensations from the trunk and the lower limb are received by the nucleus dorsalis. Fourth is the visceral afferent nucleus. It receives afferent from the viscera via the dorsal nerve roots. Third and the last is the intermediate gray column. So there we have two nucleus, intermediolateral and the intermediomedial. Let's start this intermediolateral nucleus. It extends from the T1 to L2 level. It gives origin to the preganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nervous system. Now, some may not know what are preganglionic fibers. So if I tell you in the simple terms, this is suppose one nucleus. These are the preganglionic fibers. There is this ganglion, which is nothing but a group of neurons, the cell bodies of the neurons, and then you have this postganglionic fibers which travel to some organ. So this was nucleus, preganglionic fibers, the ganglion, postganglionic fiber, and some organ. Okay, so the intermediolateral nucleus gives origin to the preganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is associated with the fight and flight functions, that is functions in emergency, like in fear, in anger, etc. Then intermedial nucleus, it extends from S2 to S4, the sacral outflow, and the T1 to L2 of the intermediolateral was thoracolumbar outflow. Okay, gives origin to the preganglionic fibers of the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the functions at rest, like when you're relaxing, when there is no tension, no anger issues, nothing. At rest, all your heartbeat, the respiratory rate, etc., that is controlled by the parasympathetic nervous system. So this was it for today. Next lecture will be continuation, where we will talk about the tracts of spinal cord, that is the white matter. And guys, it takes me 8 to 10 hours to prepare a single video. So if you like my efforts, just take 10 seconds to give a thumbs up and press the subscribe button. Share it with your friends. Signing off, this is Palak Sanghai. Goodbye.